In terms of what partners are on the platform, they kind of do exactly what you would expect based on the name. They allow you to partner with other organizations to run petition campaigns together or to co-host events or to co-sponsor event calendars. So for those of you who weren't in the events and groups training, calendars are ways of grouping events together. So if you wanted to host a national day of action with a lot of events in different places, that's what a calendar can be used for. And you can partner with a partner organization to run that calendar. So that's basically what partnerships are. The reason that I think that they can be really useful, especially for NROs who are relaunching, NROs who are launching the first time, or NROs who are just looking to sort of refresh campaigns on the platform, I think they can be really helpful because generally speaking, the organizations you're partnering with have probably at least one professional campaigner who's working for them, which is why you're partnering with them, because they do things in the world that you want to partner on. So they can be a good way of getting higher quality, perhaps higher quality than regular user-created campaigns on the site. They may be able to devote more time to making their campaigns a success without needing as much admin intervention as completely member-created campaigns. So I think they can be really useful when you're trying to model good campaigning back to your members, to have these campaigns that are started by professionals and run by professionals and hopefully one, but that you can then use in modeling to your regular members. In terms of other things with partnerships and like the setup of partnerships, it's important to know that this is only an admin setup. So as you know, myself, who's not an admin on your Greenpeace sites, I can't say like, I'm going to create a partnership and I'm going to have special privileges. Like it's something that you would have to create for me. So at some point there may be organizations who are getting in touch with you asking to have a partnership on your site and be able to run petitions together. I would say that generally that's for organizations who have already established that they do these sort of partnership type campaigns. So if you haven't done them in the past, you might need to reach out to organizations in your sphere if you want to set these up. We are going to talk about setting them up, but I also want to talk about them with some examples here. So this is one example of a partnership page. And so a couple of things to know about what makes partnerships special is first that they get a landing page like this. So they get a page where people can see the name of the organization, maybe their logo, some description of what they're doing in the world and why I should care to be a part of their effort. And I say effort, lowercase e, not referencing the like feature that is called efforts on ControlShift. And then I can also see some campaigns that are on this site that they're helping to sponsor. So if I am only on fossil-free, People and Planet's list, I can come to this page and I can say like, which are the campaigns that People and Planet is sponsoring? I want to take action on their campaigns because I'm one of their supporters. This is another example. In the US, we weirdly don't have paid family and medical leave for a whole bunch of people. And so this organization is working to make more people have paid family and medical leave. And so again, you as a member of the public who is not a coworker admin could come here to find more information about this organization and the work they're doing, and then see some of the campaigns that they're helping to sponsor on coworker.org. In terms of the petitions themselves, they look basically the same as other petitions on the site with a couple of differences. The first difference is that they either have the logo of the partner organization on the partner page, or they just have the name of the partner depending on how you set up the partnership. So it's up to you. And you would probably honestly ask the partner what they prefer, but in the end it is your choice what you do there. The other difference is that when you're setting up a partnership campaign, and this is how it interacts with the data side of everything, you can decide how people are added to a partner's mailing list. So if you create a partnership and you invite a member of the partner staff to be a partner admin on the platform, they'll get access to a page like this. So this is the same page that we were just looking at, but I'm logged in as someone who is a partner admin. And so as a partner admin, I can see all of the petitions that are being run in my partnership, regardless of moderation status. I can't change the moderation status of these. So as the ControlShift using organization, you would still have full moderation and full approval, but I can at least see all of the campaigns that we're working on together. The same with events. If we're running any events together, I can see all of those. I can see all of our calendars. But the important thing for partners and the important thing for this data call is that I can also contact people in a slightly different way. So if I'm running, 5 petitions that are all part of this partnership, I can contact all signers from all 5 of those petitions at once through this email tool if they've been added to my partner mailing list. And if they've been added to my partner mailing list, I can also export information about those signers out of the platform and then bring them back to my main mailing tool. So if I'm using, my own CRM, I can import them into my CRM. And that's where the data part fits into this call, is that when you're setting up these partnerships, we do ask you to think through how people should be added to the partner mailing list. And you have a couple of options here. So you can either do something where there's just a special disclaimer that says if you sign, you'll be added to this partner mailing list. That's the way it's set up here. So you don't have an option. If you sign this petition, you're going to potentially get emails from both People and Planet and 350. That's one option. It's one that I would encourage you to seriously consider if you're especially processing the data of EU citizens. Again, no legal advice offered during this call, but maybe seriously think about whether a disclaimer is enough to, abide by any rules that you may or may not be subject to. And Luca is the one saying things, not me, clearly, not legal advice. The other option is to have an opt-in, and this can either be a pre-check checkbox the way this is, or you can have an unchecked checkbox that people have to manually check in order to be added to the mailing list. And then only the people who actually opt into the mailing list will receive updates from the partner and be exportable by the partner. The one thing that I would say also about this checkbox is that it does not interact with any other email opt-ins you have set up on your site. So if you have a checkbox for people to join your mailing list, it will just add a second checkbox here. And so it's completely separate from whatever you have set up for your main opt-ins. You can also do both. So if you want to both have this opt-in checkbox and have a further disclaimer that maybe points folks to that partner's privacy policy or something like that, you could do that. You could also add that sort of link to this opt-in. It's really up to you how much information you provide and how you set up these partners. It's also something that can vary on each individual partner. So let's say that you're working with an organization that you've worked with for years, you know them, you trust them, they always use their data correctly, you don't have many concerns. Maybe you're not in the EU and are perhaps not processing the data of EU citizens. Maybe you decide you want to use a disclaimer because you know who they are, you know that they're not going to do anything bad with the data. On the other hand, if it's a brand new partner, someone you've never worked with before, you're not sure, are they going to start spamming a list? Maybe you decide to have a checkbox for them. You can make this decision on a per partner basis if you. Okay, so these are all the live examples. Let's actually go through the process of setting one of these up. Basically, you would just go to your admin tools, click partnerships, and then click new partner. All we require for a new partnership is a title and a description. So who are they and some blurb about what they're doing. I'd encourage you to just ask for their quick elevator pitch blurb. Most organizations would be able to provide one. You wouldn't need to write your own description of what they're doing. Once you've set that up, you can go to this edit partner section to update their settings. And this is where you can choose that opt-in or disclaimer option. Like I said, you can do both if you want, and you can set it up to either be a pre-checked or unchecked checkbox, depending on what you prefer. You can also set up other various settings for this partner. So if you have a logo that you want to display on the page, you can upload it here. This is where you can decide, are we going to use the logo on petition pages, or are we going to use the written out name of the partner? The other thing that you can do is decide whether you actually want partners to be able to export signers from the platform at all. So if you don't want them to actually download any signers, you maybe have talked to legal counsel and they have said that that is not something that you should be doing. This is not me nudging you in any way. It just is something that could come up. You can basically say that they're not allowed to download signers from their partnership tools. We would then get rid of the export signers option, but they would still be able to contact people through the platform. So that is another set of choices that you can make for a partner. The final things for partners that makes them a little bit special are, actually there are a few things. So one is that you can update the different emails that are sent for partner petitions. So for example, if someone signs a partner campaign, they can receive a customized thanks for signing email that mentions the partner more explicitly. That's something that your partner might ask for as a, a thing that they want before they agree to run campaigns with you on the site. You can also set different reply to email addresses and from names for partner emails. So if they're sending a blast email from the partnership page, you can have replies go directly to them versus coming to you first. And the other thing that you can do is set up, different, like I said, different disclaimers for other parts of the platform that aren't just the signature form. So for example, the offline signature collection page, you can set up a different disclaimer because they're a partnership. Once you've created this partnership, you would then usually invite members of staff who should have access to the partner admin tools. You can invite as many of these people as you want to. Usually they're staff members at the partner organization that you're going to be working with. And again, that would give them access to this page with the toolbar up here. In addition to the tools in the toolbar here, I think I said this before, but I'll just say it again, they have access to the petition creator tools for every petition in their platform. So, sorry, in their partnership. So even if they didn't technically create the campaign that's listed as a partner petition, they would be able to use the petition creator tools for that petition. And the same for events. Even if they are not technically the one who created the event, they would still be able to use the event host tools for the events in their partnership. The final thing to say about partners is the emails that they send also do go through the moderation queue, which probably seems a little bit weird because they are, a partner organization writing an email. But they are still sent from the email that you set up for all emails to be sent via. So it's usually like contact@greenpeace.org or something like that. They're still going to be sent from that address, which is why we still require you to approve them before they're actually sent. So even if you create a partnership, even if you invite partner admins, you still have full moderation control over everything that they touch, including their petitions. They can't moderate them on your behalf, and their emails, they have to be moderated by you before they're sent. All right, so this is where we're going to get into some of the privacy settings that you can set up for your platform. Again, not a lawyer. You're going to hear this again in this section, but just saying it at the top in case once the call is chopped up into smaller calls, that way there's a disclaimer at the top of each of these sections. So not a lawyer, seek legal counsel, make sure that you're abiding by local laws. The first place to get started for privacy settings is in your settings section, and then privacy. We've named it helpfully to make it easier to find. From here, you can choose various privacy settings for the platform. So the first one is name privacy. How do you want people's names to be displayed on the site, either to members of the public or to the petition creators and event hosts? There are various options available from full name down to initials only. For action taker displayed to the public, you can also choose no display, but note that this will mean that forum functionality is automatically disabled because we need to have names for people leaving forum messages. Whatever options you choose, it's up to you. You can set this up however you want to, and it'll be used in the different places described here. The next section down here is contact info. This is how much information you're granting to petition creators or event hosts. Usually, the phone number is exposed to petition creators in the CSV of petition signers and to event hosts in their attendee lists. And usually the email address of attendees is shown to the event host in their attendee list. Petition creators never see the actual emails of their signers. I would encourage you to think through what contact information you want to share, especially making sure that it abides by your privacy policy. In general, my nudge for every organization is that there's very limited reasons why an event host would need to have the email addresses of their attendees. Event hosts can contact their attendees through the blast email tool that's part of their event. They can also use the forum that's on their event to talk to their attendees. You may have use cases where they actually do need their email addresses, but I would say that those are very limited use cases. So that's something that I generally encourage people not to expose to event hosts, but it's of course up to you. For the phone numbers, I think that can be more helpful for event attendees, or sorry, event hosts. If they're going to call through their list of attendees to confirm that they're coming, make sure that they don't have any questions about the event, et cetera. They might need to use the phone number for that, but it's something that you can decide how much information you want to share on your version of the platform. The next section down here is personal information entry and export. So what information can people take out of the site and what information can they put into the site? So the two options here around CSV and PDF downloads, this basically determines what delivery documents your petition creators can create on their own. So do you want them to be able to export a PDF of signers? Do you want them to be able to export a CSV of signers? It's totally up to you. I would normally suggest having at least one delivery document. Otherwise, people can't easily deliver their petition to the decision maker. They can, of course, go to you and you can customize the text on the delivery page to, give an email that they can contact to get a PDF. But if it is, something that you're allowed to do based on your privacy policy and legal situation, I would encourage you to have some sort of delivery document available. The section down here around offline actions, usually most organizations have a page that allows people to export a blank form and then collect signatures in person, maybe at a farmer's market or at their school board meeting or whatever. If you don't want people to be able to collect signatures offline and then bulk enter them into the platform, you can hide that page. Most people don't do this. Most people allow their petition creators to take their campaign offline and collect signatures in person. The final section down here is for staff and team permissions. So we've talked a little bit about this in past calls. Your teams are available here. You can create new teams that have more limited access to the platform by clicking new team and choosing exactly what you want your new team to be able to do. All I'm going to say on the data side of this are a few things. One, and this is not a great example, is when you go to the team's permission and go to admins, it will show a check mark if two-factor authentication has been enabled. So two-factor means that people will either have to enter a code from a text message or a code from either Authy or Google Authenticator at the time that they're logging in. We strongly recommend anyone who has team permissions over a real site versus our demo site that's literally just me signing using different emails. Anyone who has team permissions to actually have two-factor authentication enabled. So if you are an admin at an organization, especially if you're sort of the main owner of a site, I encourage you to take a look at the list and potentially nudge your fellow admins to turn on two-factor auth. We have a document in the Help Center. You also set it up by just going to your My Account page and then clicking to enable two-factor authentication here. My other thing that I will mention in this section about teams is, you know how every 6 months you're supposed to check your fire alarms. I would encourage you every 6 months to check who has access to your platform and do they still need access to your platform, especially if members of your NRO are either leaving or changing positions and no longer need full access to the platform. Remove access if they don't need it anymore or if they've left the organization. Obviously, also, if people have joined and need new access, it might be a good time to make sure they have the right access to all the things they want to do. But we've definitely had organizations who are like, oh yeah, that person has access and they haven't worked here in 7 years. And so you probably want to remove access once people leave so that they can't continue to log into the platform. Okay, so at this point, we're going to talk about some things that might be a little bit more boring, but are still important. And those are things like email opt-ins, GDPR data processing consent, portability, deletion, all of these things. So we're gonna start with email opt-in types. This determines how people are added to your mailing list, and allowing them to either opt in or opt out is something that I would encourage you to do. We do technically allow implicit opt-in, so people do not have a choice of whether or not they receive emails. We normally don't recommend that. We normally recommend providing some level of choice for your signers about whether they end up on a mailing list. You can see different options here in terms of conversion rates. If you're interested, implicit obviously has the best conversion rate because people do not have a choice. They are all automatically opted in. Next best is the pre-check checkbox. If they don't take action, they will be opted in. So that is why it is second best. Third best is radio buttons with the "Are you sure?" prompt. If they click no, they will receive some sort of text like this that says, "Are you really sure? This is how we're going to stay in touch." Fourth best is just normal radio buttons, and generally speaking, worst conversion is the unchecked checkbox, where if they don't do anything, they're just automatically not added to the mailing list, versus radio buttons where they're prompted to make some sort of choice. However, you can use any of these that you want to. It's entirely up to you. It's also up to you what the text is. I think that this is not true for any of the NROs, but if you still have our default text, which is join name of the organization, I recommend changing it. It's not clear what that means. It's not clear that it's a mailing list that they're talking about. Please change it if you're still using the default to something that makes more sense. I think you've all already done this though, but just in case. There is technically another opt-in behavior that is not on this list, which is email confirmation. So email confirmation basically means that anytime someone takes action on the site, they will receive an email with 2 links. A link to confirm and be opted into the mailing list, and a link to confirm their action but not receive updates. If you want to use that option, you have to get in touch with us and we'll set it up for you. It's sort of the only way to be 100% sure that people who are added to the mailing list were actually, using their correct email address when they signed. It's also probably the lowest conversion of all of these. But something to think about if you do want to do email confirmations. Yes, actually, one other thing here. One thing to know, especially for those of you who perhaps are processing EU data and perhaps based on the interpretation of the legal counsel that I am not, again, not giving legal advice, they might say that you should keep a record of what opt-ins people are agreeing to when they sign. We do keep a list of all of the opt-ins that have ever been on your site, starting in, I think, March of 2018. I could be wrong about the date we turned this on, but we've started logging what your opt-ins are. You can then go back and say, like, what was the opt-in at that time? What was the language we used to make sure that you're abiding by whatever people agreed to? And each signature that's added will say what opt-in it was set up to use. So you can check back here if needed. The other thing around opt-ins is SMS opt-ins. This is a fairly new feature, so I just wanted to mention it in case, especially for orgs that have already been running for a while, you might have not have noticed that we added it. This basically allows you to have a separate opt-in and separate opt-in language for text messages or SMS. So if you are going to be texting signers, or if you're adding them to some sort of, here's some updates type of texting campaign, you might want to have an opt-in that asks them whether or not they want to be added to that list. You can set up this opt-in to, again, look sort of however you want it to look like. We don't have radio buttons for this. It's all checkboxes, but it's up to you, or you can do implicit. And we'll also keep an eye on, we'll keep a record of what they opt into when they sign. So those are also options for you to set up as well.
So question is, can we have 2 email opts? One opting in or out for the petition specifically, another one allowing Greenpeace to send them other information?
Yeah, that's a great question. So by default, no, we just have the 1 email opt-in. We can set up a second opt-in though. So that's a custom field is the way we would implement it. GP France actually has this set up currently and ran into some troubles with it a few weeks ago. So they might be able to tell you whether or not it's recommended. Basically, the way that normally works, though, would be that we would use the default email opt-in options here for the opting into the petition itself, and then create a separate field that would be the Greenpeace level opt-in. There are fewer choices for that custom field, so we can do, checkboxes, radio buttons, but we can't do the radio button with the "Are you sure?" prompt for the custom field. Once the custom field is set up, we would then map it so that it's going into your CRM appropriately. I don't think it's speaking out of turn if I talk broadly about the issue GP France had, which was that we were overwriting previous responses. And so they've had to create sort of a custom field that we can send that data to so it doesn't overwrite previous yes, no's from other systems. So it is possible with a custom field. You can definitely reach out to us if you want to change that and set up a custom field, but I would encourage you to think through how it actually syncs over so that you don't run into similar issues. So in terms of a couple of other things around consent, so I think that some of you are already using this. I'm pretty sure 11M has this set up. GDP Belgium has this set up. But one thing is consent banners for cookies. So if you're interested in having cookie consent banners, you can enable that. The actual language of the consent up here is up to you. You can provide whatever you want to for that text here. The buttons are always the same. So we always have the option to only use essential cookies, which are things like, I have just signed a petition, I'm now going to another petition, and I can one-click sign. That will be an essential cookie that allows us to store the information they've just entered for, I think, an hour, and then allow them to do one-click signing. There are a few other essential cookies. If you log in, you get cookied because that's how login works. We do have a help document that explains what the essential cookies are and their expiration dates. The other is to accept all cookies, which would include things like Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, other types of things that are not considered essential. And again, we have a help document that explains what those two options are, so that you can then give that information to your members as you're describing how you're using cookies. But that is an option if you'd like to set it up. The other thing that you can do, especially for folks in the EU, is set up data processing consents. I'm realizing I don't actually remember who I had set up as the alternate example of this. Let me just hope for the best here. Great. So this is in Swedish. I don't actually speak Swedish, but I do know what this checkbox does, so I'll just talk about it as if I know what it says. Basically, if you are processing the data of EU citizens, and if your legal counsel says that you need to have data processing consent, we do allow you to do that. You can choose to either have implicit consent, which means that there's just this special disclaimer right above the sign button that explains that your information will be processed in such a way. You can also have a checkbox that must actually be checked to sign. If we're recording their signature, we'd be processing their data. So we do require people to consent to processing the data, because otherwise we can't record the signature. So it's required, but it will require them to actually check this box. They won't be able to complete the signature until they've agreed to your processing consent. Again, this text is set by you. You can link out wherever you want to, or use whatever language your legal counsel suggests. I don't think that this applies for any current NROs, but if you are operating in multiple countries and processing data from various areas, we generally will only require this consent to be completed by someone who chooses an EU, EEA, or the UK as their country. So if someone is signing and chooses US, they wouldn't be required necessarily to check this box. But it is an option. And if you're interested in enabling this, either implicit or explicit, just let us know, we'll enable it, and you'll be able to set the actual content that's used for that data processing consent. The content for that is set from content under settings, and then petitions, and then EU data processing consent label, which you can then customize and translate to say whatever you'd like to say. The other thing to know specifically about this, and especially for folks who are subject to GDPR, again, if your lawyers interpret it in ways that we have heard before, is that we will keep a record of anytime your either privacy policy, terms of service, or that label changes. So we will ask for consent from people who are taking action. If you then update the details of your privacy policy, if you change the wording of your data processing consent label, we'll ask anyone who's previously consented to reconsent to this new version. We'll keep a record of what versions people have consented to, what versions they were consenting to at the time they took each specific action. And you'll be able to look back to say, like, what did it say then? What did they agree to? Are we still good to process their data based on what they previously agreed to? So all of this is available at this version of the URL for your Greenpeace site. You can go there, you can look, and like I said, we'll automatically bookkeep as you make any changes to privacy policy, terms of service, or data processing consent labelings. Actually, I realized one thing I didn't say on email opt-in, so I'm just gonna jump back there. I mentioned how we bookkeep if your email opt-ins change at all. You can also, if let's say someone agreed to an older version of an email opt-in that you don't believe is still able to be sent emails based on what they previously agreed to. You can set that old email opt-in to be unmailable, which means that even if they said, yes, we won't mail them anymore because you decided that it's not a valid consent anymore. This was sort of more useful for folks right as GDPR was kicking in. If they had previously had implicit or pre-check checkboxes and were moving to explicit, it allowed them to basically stop sending to those old signers, but it is an option should you ever change your email opt-in language. So last couple of things I want to mention that are mentioned in GDPR and are still not legal advice, but I will just show you how we have implemented things in ways that might be useful for you. The first one is around data portability, which is the ability to take your information out of the site in a machine readable format and then potentially bring it to some other, competitor in theory and upload it so that, you're not stuck on a specific tool. We allow individual users to do an export of their own data, which is a JSON file of what they have done on the platform. So it includes all of their account information, the things that they have signed, the events they've attended, etc. You can also do this export on their behalf if you, I assumed that I had signed with that email at some point. Let me just try this one. If you search for their member page, you'll see this export activity link at the top here. You can export their data into a JSON format and then send it over to them. The next one is around data deletion. If this is an important thing, actually, I would say for all organizations, GDPR or not, I would recommend that you set this up. If you want folks who have created petitions or hosted events or led local groups to be able to delete their account whenever they want to, you first need to go to settings, options, membership, and then choose a staff member who will take ownership of those orphaned assets. If there's not someone listed who's going to be in charge of those petitions, events, or groups after someone deletes their account, people will not be able to delete their accounts from their My Account page. So I would really recommend setting this up, even if GDPR is something you do not care about at all, just to give people sort of full ability to do what they need to do. Once this is set up, folks can delete their accounts from their My Account page, and then the things that they have, the petitions they've created, the events they've hosted, or the groups that they're leading will be transferred to an admin to take ownership of. If I have an account, but I've only signed petitions or RSVP to events and I'm not the owner of any of those assets, I can delete my account at any time. You do not need to set up any of this. It'll just be allowed to be deleted. If I am the owner of those assets, then I need to have someone I can transfer those assets to before I can see this delete button on my account page.
Kristy.
Yeah.
If it's not set up, what's going to happen? Whoever has the site admin permission gets it automatically?
If it's not set up, the people who are the petition creators or the event hosts will not see that button. So they'll just need to contact you in order to say, hey, I want to delete an account. As an admin, you can then go to their settings page and then delete them. If you don't have that already set up, they actually might show this flow, even if you do, I can't really remember. We'll basically ask you at the time of your deleting the account to choose who should take over the assets that are assigned to them. So it's still 100% possible for people to have their account deleted, regardless of if this is set up. It just, they have to go through admins versus being able to do it on their own. And I would recommend, if you don't have it set up, set it up, make it a little bit easier for people if they do want to delete their accounts.